Hi, morning. As alluded to, Leslie St. Louis. I'm the manager of brokerage services at First Citizens Brokerage and Advisory Services, and it's a real pleasure to have been working with Cinema1 over the last year or so to bring this off issue to market. It provides a diversification to the investment offerings to the general public that I think is unique. Most of these stocks on this exchange tend to focus around manufacturing and financial services. This now offers a peek into the entertainment sector, which, as Ingrid and Brian said, is growing and in fact used by almost everybody. So we really look forward to a positive response from the investing public to this unique opportunity to get in at pretty much ground level in an enterprise that has a proven track record. So we sit back and we look forward to the next month with great anticipation.
I'm taking questions. Jewel Brown from TV6 News. Two questions I would like to get answers to. One, in terms of the NIF, the government has called that quite a success. Given the amount concerning this IPO, any concern in terms of the timing, given that you would have had a number of not just institutional but individual investors who would have basically shown their confidence in that fund as opposed to, say, the fund or the IPO that you are offering?
Yeah, well, I mean, as you all are aware, the NIF offer was oversubscribed. So those excess funds have now returned to the market. So they have and investing is something that's an ongoing process. So this just provides another flavor for both institutional and individual investors to support. In terms of timing, we had hoped to come to market before, but given the size of NIF, the reality was that, and there's no wrong time to come to market at the end of the day. The story will speak for itself, and we look forward to a favorable response from the market.
I would just add that I was encouraged very much by the success of the NIF transaction and the number of new accounts that at least were publicized that came into the market, over 3,000. And I think that augurs well for our much smaller offer, but it demonstrates that the population is much more becoming more acclimated with investing. And we're certainly encouraging our full staff to open up new brokerage accounts as well on this transaction. And our goal would be that we see a greater and bigger investing community over time. Well, we went through a relatively rigorous process of valuation, which included the typical kind of industry metrics that we would look at, both globally, regionally, and within our own local market. And that gave us a sense ultimately of the valuation of a company. And I think the actual stock price is based a little more on the affordability factor. We wanted it to be something that the common person who comes and buys a $75 ticket in IMAX and $100 ticket in Gemstone and $100 ticket in 4DX could also afford to buy 10, 15, 20, 30 shares and feel as though they actually own a piece of the business that they patronize. So certainly affordability was a factor in the actual share price itself.
Just something else I would have wanted to get some clarity on. We're seeing the additional work being done here at One Woodbrook Place with IMAX. You had the earthquake that occurred last month. We saw the video, a particular part of the building and the car and the rubble and so on. Have you all done when I say that, I mean IMAX in collaboration with One Woodbrook, whoever owns it, has an a structural integrity assessment been done on this facility and also any other facilities that the IMAX cinema chain would be located to ensure the safety of those who would be viewing movies and so on?
Yes, well, that was the most unfortunate photobomb of the digital IMAX sign in any picture. So when the earthquake happened, actually HCL, Home Construction Limited, brought a team of civil engineers to come and look at the structural integrity of the building, right? And after each tremor, that team kept coming back to make sure that structurally the building had its integrity maintained. It's unfortunate that it was not publicized that the entertainment in which we are in is the building, the entertainment building, was built to California building code. And it actually, when we went first to get our approvals with IMAX, the structural engineer from that, the company that built, that was part of the team that built the entertainment building, he had to present certificates that demonstrated that this building is built to California building code. So when they came through and looked at a lot of, there are superficial cracks that have not been plastered back, but the structural integrity of the building, it's actually the safest place to be is in the building during an earthquake, because in running out, you can be hurt. So all that to say, at each time, the landlord, which is HCL, they did bring their team to ensure that we are safe here. So it is a safe building.
Yeah, if you're referring to the image in social media, a lot of people saw, you know, a wall falling on a car, but that actually was not the entertainment building or the IMAX building. It just happened to be the last frame, but actually the building adjacent to it, which is where Pizza Hut actually operates. So it was just unfortunate that the perception was that, oh, IMAX has fallen, but that actually had nothing to do with the building that we're currently in.
And even adding more to it was that when the car was crushed, you saw a muster point sign. So that just added fire to the whole story. But I must say we were very encouraged. We had our 7th anniversary and we were sold out. So a lot of people came back into the building, which was wonderful. But it is very unfortunate that the social media swirl around it really didn't reveal or address what I just told you all in terms of the building being built to California building code.
Hi, I'm Carla Visual from the Newsday. I just want to clarify some things. You mentioned that you have exclusive licenses for where? Just Trinidad or for the Caribbean?
Yeah,
if you can clarify that.
Yeah, in terms of IMAX, it's just Trinidad and Tobago.
Okay.
But IMAX is, I mean, when we started, there were maybe 500 IMAX screens globally, and we were very much a guinea pig, but a very successful guinea pig in the IMAX family. So as such, we've garnered a lot of support, and really they're very keen on, I mean, we've even had discussions with them about going into very competitive markets like my old hometown of LA. And they're saying, hey, you know, Brian, Ingrid, you know, you guys are top performer in all of South America, because they rank all the theaters by performance. And despite that performance being revenue-based, not indexed really by the ticket price, we tend to historically be in the top 5, inclusive of Sao Paulo, where, you know, the ticket price is upwards of $25 US. So that gives us the ability to, at minimum, have very constructive conversations about expansion opportunities really anywhere in the world.
Okay, and because you mentioned something about geographic and currency diversification, are there plans to go to some other markets?
Yes, we would like to think that we brought on a very experienced, kind of financially sound board to assist us with making wise decisions. I mean, I think one of the things that has occurred just as a natural growth for us has been, we receive a number of offers to, you know, come with us in this mall, come with us in that mall, come with us in this place. So we probably have a list of close to a dozen opportunities, of which probably we've solicited 3. So from those, we will make intelligent business decisions about, you know, the terms of a lease, about the amount of capital outlays, about the demographics of the market. So go through really a decision matrix to really determine where's the best place to plant our investment. This particular offer, we've already committed to building in Gulf City. We think that's a good location for us, and we've gotten a lot of support from the Gulf City management team and ownership team. And it's already in construction. So I think theater site number 2 is one that will come out of a, you know, deliberate decision process. But again, that's out of another 10 to 11 sites.
Do you have an opening date? I'm from San Fernando, so this is in my interest. Do you have a date for when it's going to open in San Fernando?
We're really pushing for probably the end of Q2 2019. So, you know, it would be nice if by the Borough Blockbuster season around April, But you could, if you drive by, you'll see on the 6th floor that the construction is underway at the site already.
Okay, great. Now I just have two more questions. Can you clarify, because the name of the company is, the name of at least one screen is Digicel IMAX, right? So people just generally, or at least I do, assume that it's owned by Digicel. Can you clarify that ownership structure? And
Sure. So Digicel is a title sponsor. So by being the title sponsor, everything has their name on it. But really, the ownership structure is Cine1 Limited, has a set of equity shareholders and other shareholders, and eventually public shareholders. So that's really, and the Cinema1 is like the umbrella company that offers the 3 movie experiences. So if we were able to get a title sponsor for 40X, it might be named entity 40X, but it still just falls under the branding. It's all about branding and naming. It's really naming rights that Digicel has to the IMAX theater.
Just to give a little historical context there, when we started in 2000 and early 9, exploring IMAX, there were a number of institutional IMAX theaters, which still exist. They just haven't been growing fast. So I mean, the Smithsonian IMAX, the JFK Space Center, the Pacific Science Center. There, I don't know, probably about 100 of them globally. Each of them would tend to encourage a large corporate sponsor to support that mammoth screen, as well as the programming for it, especially along the lines of educational programming. They tend to be affiliated with museums and all. So we kind of wanted to blend, in terms of our strategy, a little bit of the institutional approach of IMAX when we started with the Hollywood approach. Because at the same time, IMAX was seeing that directors were more and more saying that working in the IMAX format gives them the ability to basically paint on a bigger canvas. So it's an opportunity to do their artwork on a bigger canvas. So Christopher Nolan and J.J. Abrams, and really, pedigree Hollywood directors were moving and adopting more and more the IMAX format. So what that meant is that then the theater changed, that the real big boys, Regal and AMC and Cineworld, et cetera, globally, who have 5,000 plus screens, they started building IMAX screens. But typically what they would do is convert one of their existing auditoriums to an IMAX screen. So hence now, if you visit, New York or whatever, LA, anywhere in the world, you'll find in a multiplex environment quite often a little IMAX sign, right? But that's kind of the newer version, which has grown from 400 to now over 1,000, whereas the legacy, more educational approach to IMAX still exists, but it just hasn't really been growing very fast because it's museum supported, nonprofit supported, and sponsorship supported. So that's kind of the reason why we reached out to not only Digicel, but also to Atlantic, who remains our educational sponsor and has been a partner with us since the inception. And they play a real vital role in our educational field trip program, which is why, again, we kind of have that community asset as part of our DNA, culture, I should say, as part of our DNA.
okay, great. And well, this is my last question. Now, this is the first listing on the SME, the Junior Stock Exchange. I guess also if you can probably answer if you'd like. How did you feel taking that risk, because you're going to set the example for everybody else? How did you feel, and what was the, I guess, especially Mr. St. Louis, in terms of advising them, because again, this is new territory for you as well. How can you explain a little bit about that process and how much of a risk? And clearly, again, you guys are going to be the template for everybody else. And do you think it will encourage other people based on this IPO?
Yeah, that's definitely our hope, and certainly the stock exchange shares that hope and intention. This market was opened several years ago in anticipation of broadening and deepening the local capital markets to encourage smaller entities to see equity investing as a real option for them as part of their financing and growth strategies. The expectation was that given the significant incentives to joining the SME market, the reduced tax rate, the reduced listing fees, that it would have been a rush. Unfortunately, it hasn't worked out that way, but you got to start somewhere. And we were glad that we were approached by Cinema1 to assist them in making that a reality. And we will hope that other companies will realize that, hey, this thing is a viable option, and we see lots more, because it will also provide a wider range of investments at possibly a more affordable price point for younger investors to get in to the market. And then because one of the challenges with the regular main board investments is a lot of those shares aren't traded. They're bought by institutional and other investors and held. So even if you wanted to, you couldn't access and take advantage of it. This is an opportunity now for all investors, but particularly new investors, to now have accessible securities available that will provide them an acceptable return. And there is the option to graduate to the main board. It's a matter of the market's cap at the end of the day. So once you at the stage where you've grown beyond the 50 million and you're heading above, then you have the ability to move on to the first tier market.
I think there's also a 5-year time limit too, that I noticed in the legislation. Yeah. At least in terms of enjoying the tax benefits, right?
Leo Soares from the Express. I wanted to find out if you guys have any idea of Digital IMAX's current market share.
I mean, it depends upon, I guess, how you measure it, we definitely have always been a premium price operator, so our ticket prices are slightly higher. We have, maybe 5% of total tickets and maybe 10% of total market share. There is some data where we've extrapolated kind of some distribution elements enshrined in the prospectus, so I think that will give a little better guidance. But it would be more in the, maybe 8 to 10% range based upon the visibility that we have. Certainly our, the other operators in the sector would now be able to get a better sense of that because we're disclosing our publicly disclosing our, revenue, et cetera, whereas at present the other operators do not do so. So we are unfortunately kind of speculating, but based upon the information we have, that would kind of be the range I would suggest.
And how much are you hoping to achieve after the IPO?
Well, we really see the market as fairly wide, so it's maybe from a Trinidad standpoint, not much growth, but we really see our greater growth over time coming from more regional and perhaps international expansion that I kind of alluded to beforehand. So we really would be measuring our growth. Certainly market share is important, but more in terms of, the number of multiplex sites, the number of screens that we actually operate. We always have a goal of 10 to 15%, so that's a number off the cuff, but I think we would probably measure our success more in terms of our, the profitability of each multiplex that we develop and the overall, I think, attendance that we achieve as well.
Are there any regional markets you're eyeing in particular?
We kind of alluded that we've had many offers of the islands, but I wouldn't want to at this point say, because we really need to look at each one on a commercial level and determine which one will fit the model of profitability. But we have looked at some of our neighbors, and we still are, until the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted, I would prefer to just say we have had offers made to us, and we're still looking at them. Right now, we can concretely say about South and Gulf City, but those would be still on the table to be really looked at based on the decision matrix that Brian had alluded to. I'd prefer to wait.